Welcome back to the channel, trainers. It's PJ here, and today we're going to be talking about the new meta. Yes, there's more decks out there, there's more things to try, and you want to know what the best decks in the format are right now. So I have done my research. I've gone in and looked at a lot of these tournaments and the results from them with Space-Time Smackdown legal here. We've got the new cards, we've been testing out some new decks. So let's get into it and take a look at the top 10 decks in the format right now. Okay, starting out with number 10, we're looking at Palkia Articuno. Now, this deck has a lot going for it. It's got the most broken card ever in Manaphy in this list, so you're powering up your Pokemon on the bench with Manaphy, and then it uses cards like Dawn, and you can use Misties to power everything up. The downside to something like this, and why it's number 10, is that once you explode all of those energies with Palkia's secondary attack, it's really hard to power back up and switch in and out of the active spot, so there is some downsides with this, but I really do like it. It's a very strong, powerful deck, even going first because you can flip Misties, and it flips heads a million times and you just body your opponent, and that's just how water decks work. So I'm a huge fan of this deck, and I really do think that we'll start to see more and more water decks come out here in this format the further we get into it. Moving into number 9, an oldie but goodie, a budget-friendly deck, if you will. We have Rapidash Ninetails. Now, this deck is really cool. It has a lot of early turn attackers, so only 1 to 2 energy requirements here. We have Blaine to modify the damage output so you can do those big numbers that a lot of the other decks are doing here. I mean, obviously we just talked about a water deck, so having this at number 9, there's so much water Pokemon, or there's so many water Pokemon that are good right now and water support in the format, where this deck doesn't see as much play, but it's still a great solid deck, especially for beginners. Obviously there's no EXs in here, so it's a really awesome deck if you're playing a no EX format. I really do think that this list is awesome. So if you haven't tried it already, make sure you're giving this one a try for sure. On to number 8 in Yanmega Dialga EX. Now, a lot of new cards in this list here. We have obviously 2 Cyrus here, we see 2 Dawn, and we've got the 2-2 split for Yanmega and Yanma, and then we've got the Dialga here. So a lot of moving parts in it. You're going to have to play multiple kinds of energy. Dialga is obviously able to load up not only Yanmega, but also Mew. So having that as your primary attacker to start and block with, and then obviously you're using Leaf to retreat easier. It's really good, and then you can copy some attacks with Mew EX. So a lot of big Pokemon, beefy Pokemon. I think this is really strong. I've seen it do well in tournaments, so this is a really cool, innovative way to use the majority of the brand new cards that we got out in Space-Time Smackdown. Now, on to number 7. This one actually just won a pretty big online tournament. So we're seeing these decks start to develop. We're seeing what new ways we can play things. We've got Darkrai EX and Magnezone. Now, Magnezone isn't that great, but we're able to load that up, and then obviously because there's a lot of water in the format, we're able to hit those numbers because we're a lightning type Pokemon. And then, you know, Darkrai can clean things up if you see any psychic Pokemon out there. So it's really cool and innovative. I'm seeing in this list we've got a giant cape and a Rocky helmet. I think maybe innovating a little bit, adding more Rocky helmet is pretty cool. We do have Druddigon to obviously start the fire here to put those damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon and kind of block for a little while, and then we can retreat that with Leaf. So really cool, innovative deck utilizing some of the new Pokemon for sure. And it's a split type deck, so that's why it's a little bit lower on the list than some of the mono dark decks that are out there. We'll get to that in just a little bit here. Now, if you're liking this video, make sure you do hit the like button. Let me know what your thoughts are so far here on my list for the top 10 decks. Did I miss anything? Is there anything else that I should be adding? I want to know. I want to hear from you, so make sure you're hitting the like button and commenting down below. I love to answer all the comments that I get on these videos for sure. Moving on to number 6, we do have Dialga again, but now this time we're playing it with a little bit more of the metal package. We've got our Melmetal in the list. So Melmetal obviously able to tank some hits, do some massive damage. We do have 2 Mew EXs in this list instead of the one that we saw on the other deck with Dialga. So Dialga EX obviously able to power both of these Pokemon up, even power itself up here. We're using Budding Expeditioner to lift our Mew up. We can block some attacks. So I think that this deck is a little bit more innovative when it comes to the Dialga engine for energy acceleration here. And I really do think that we're going to see more and more metal decks. I did see a couple of other ideas floating around out there where you're just soloing Dialga and then you use some fossil type Pokemon. That could be really, really cool. And I think that having metal typing in this format is going to be better the further and further we go. All right, we've made it to the top 5, and who better to sit in the top 5 spot than the king himself, Charizard. So we've got Charizard EX, Moltres EX, a standard deck. We've seen this in the Mythical Island format. Nothing crazy here. There is the giant cape, which you can add onto Charizard. That's pretty neat. So having a bigger, beefier Charizard, or even maybe a bigger, beefier Moltres EX is pretty cool. Pokemon communication definitely helps the consistency of this deck, and I think that that's kind of where the deck fell short in prior formats. Obviously, we're seeing people play with the new cards like Dialga, so having that fire typing into all of the metal is really good. Just like we saw, obviously, Rapidash now having the weakness to water, not so great, so that's why it's at the bottom of our top 5 here in this video. But I do think that Charizard's really, really powerful. Moltres not having the water weakness helps out a lot, and obviously it's your energy accelerator. So a lot going on with the Charizard deck, and I really do think that we're going to see more and more of it up at those top ends of the online tournaments. Now, not straying too far away, at number 4, we have Mewtwo EX still up at the top here for the best decks. Mew, obviously a powerhouse, can swing for that 150 over and over again as long as you've got your Gardevoir souped up and ready to go, accelerating that energy. We know the engine, we love it. It's one of the best decks in the format before Space-Time Smackdown, and it still remains to be one of the best decks now. The downside is there's a lot of dark Pokemon in the format. We don't like that. So sitting a little bit lower on that top 5, but still a really powerful deck. Once you come up against a majority of dark Pokemon, you're going to be sad a little bit, but you can still kind of block here. There is a Mew EX, so if you're able to swing into a dark Pokemon, maybe you can even copy a Darkrai or some other dark Pokemon and use that to your advantage. So really cool list that we see here, incorporating Cyrus now, and also using a Pokemon communication to up that consistency level. And I really think that we're going to see more and more Mewtwo in the format. As more dark type decks get countered, we'll probably see more Mewtwo come into play. Coming in at number 3, another Mythical Island deck here. Now this one's pretty vanilla, nothing's really changed in it, but it's still a great deck. It's still a good deck to compete with all of the newer ones out there. We've got Exeggutor EX, Celebi EX, the superior engine, just accelerating energy. Celebi's pumping out massive damage here, as it always has. Now, we do have 2 Ericas in this list to help you heal off your Pokemon. Exeggutor EX attacks for only 1 energy, and there's really not much else to say about this deck. It's going to be powerful until something starts to counter it. Obviously, we just talked about Charizard not too long ago in this video, so using that to its advantage and seeing that there is a really great grass deck in the format, why not play a really good fire deck? But there's a lot of, again, dark Pokemon out there, and Celebi having the grass typing is really good. Obviously, it competes against all of the other big decks, so Celebi is going to be my number 3 pick for this week. Coming in at number 2 here, we're going to see Gyarados and Greninja, some of my favorite Pokemon, and we get to see it do really, really well. We do have Palkia EX splashed in this list specifically here, and Rocky Helmet to get that better damage output so your Greninjas can start to snipe places, your Gyarados can build up in the back end, and then you're just able to swing. You've got Misty still in this deck, you're just able to pump damage all over the field, and you've got your heavy hitter in Gyarados too, can tank some damage. I really love this deck. I think we're going to start to see a lot of it at the top end of tournaments for sure, and utilizing Greninja as just that damage modifier. There's so many damage modifiers in the format right now. I think Greninja is obviously one of the best ones. Druddigon still always one of the best blocking Pokemon for right now, and I think that the consistency is just there. The deck does what it does pretty much all the time, so you might not flip heads on Misties, but you can still start to load up manually and start to ping damage for sure. So having Gyarados at number 2 is no surprise to me. And last but certainly not least is going to be that dark deck I've been talking about all throughout this video. We've got Darkrai Weavile. Now Weavile, one of my favorite Pokemon. Darkrai is pretty cool too, but putting them both in a deck is absolutely insane. Weavile just being able to do extra damage if your opponent has damage counters on it. There's so many ways to modify that. We've got Darkrai EX that if we are attaching dark energy, we're doing 20 damage to our opponent's Pokemon. It's just crazy the synergy that these cards have together, and why not put them in the best deck currently in the format? It really just snuffs things out. We've got Farfetch'd in here as an early game attacker as you're building your other attackers on the bench. We've got Rocky Helmet. We've got Cyrus. Dawn helps accelerate energy when we're switching in and out because we have 2x speed in this list. It is a crazy deck. There is no surprise to me why it is going to be one of the top performing decks in the Space-Time Smackdown meta. So if you haven't played this deck, make sure that you do. If you haven't gotten all of your hourglasses from doing some of the challenges, make sure you're doing that so you can just open up packs and try to get these cards as fast as possible, because I'm sure that this is going to see more and more play. If not, just play your Celebi decks. That way you can try to beat this thing. But I think that this is going to be the most oppressive deck, and that's why it's sitting here at number 1. Again, thank you so much for watching this video here. If you've watched all the way through, hopefully you enjoyed my picks for the top 10 decks in the format right now. And again, one more time, comment down below and let me know what you think. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, make sure that you're subscribing. Hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell so you can get updated anytime I launch a video out on the channel. I want to give you one more thanks for sticking with me all the way through this top 10. I will catch you next time here on PJ's TCG Pocket.